Thanks for watching D2 Wrenchworks and DIY guys. Today I have quite a rare Cannondale. This is a 1997 Cannondale SR 500. SR usually would mean road bike for your older ones in the 80s and early to mid 90s. But when the Silk Road comes out, the SR becomes the Silk Road. So this is a 23.5 pound, 56 centimeter, which is quite shocking for its size. And considering you're paying quite a weight penalty to have this head shock fork on there, another cool thing, that still works. Kind of surprising to see. It needs a little bit of love, and I would like to rebuild it in a future video, so do not forget to subscribe. But we're going to get into making a lot more benefits and cool things to this bike. I want to see just how good we can get it on a dirt cheap budget. And I got some cool little surprises up my sleeve for this, so let's get into it. So before we get into taking all this apart and getting into the upgrades and all the fun stuff, I really want to cover some of the great stuff about this bike being stock. First of all, we have one of Cannondale's most prolific frames, and I don't say that lightly, it really truthfully is. This is not only on the EFBE, this is a test to see how durable it is. This is one of the most durable Cannondale frames ever made, by far. And this is a lot because of the designs that they have made. To make this a Cad3, they add several different things that they had such great success with. Everybody wants one of these Cad3s at the time, and they carry it over to the later Cad4. You could even look at a more modern Cad8. Super common to see things that are very important, like we have the power pyramid down tube. And what this means is, over here, when we get to the down tube at the bottom bracket union, it is much wider. This makes it not only a much stiffer frame, it's going to dampen tons of vibrations when you're riding. The earlier Cannondales have tons of issues with being a little too stiff, but it also makes it extremely durable, and that's pretty cool to see. Now, you go to the back, you can see we have, as the Cad2 had implemented this design, we carry this over. We have longer seat stays. This helps with the comfortableness of the bike, but also it gives it a little bit more of a chance to give you a more comfortable geometry by setting the seat back a little bit. And this is actually one of the first Cannondales to have. They later do it, and I believe like Cad8 and so on. Cad4 I know for sure doesn't have it, but it has a 45-degree rake fork. That means the offset from the middle of the head tube up here to where the axle of the fork is going to be about 45 millimeters, or it is 45 millimeters. And that is very important when we replace this fork, because you want to make sure you maintain this geometry. But yeah, the newer Cannondales, they switch from 43 to 45 to give you a much more comfortable ride for longer distances. Kind of cool to see this on the earlier one with a head shock. So I do have one here. This fork that I will be putting on is a 45. Kind of hard to find them, but I will have links to everything in the description as usual, so you can find all that there. Now, next what we're going to get into is the RSX Complete Drivetrain. I've done a few videos on one, actually is another Cannondale, a 1999 R300 road bike. That one has 8-speed RSX. This one, being a little bit older, only has 7-speed by 3 RSX. But being the 3 and 7-speed, these are a little sought after. A lot of people love restoring their vintage bikes, and if you have frame shifters, these are a huge bonus. They're not only high quality construction, we have really nice aluminum levers here, but we also have a trigger right here too. A lot of people don't really like the thumb shifters that are on the newer Torney shifters that are 7-speed. You go look at my last video, Amazon's, or 2 videos back, Amazon's most popular budget bike. That comes with the newer thumb shifter, Torney style shifters, a lot like the Sora. But I digress. It is getting a little harder to find 7-speed stuff. So get on to my old video. You could find out how to refurbish these shifters. So I will be doing that. Inside of here we have some pretty pretty messy peanut butter-like grease, and I'm not even kidding you. And this is what it does, and as I was showing you, you might not have noticed earlier, this should be clicking. Click, 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 nothing. Oh, it just went. Nope, and now it goes shifting the other way. This is exactly what they do. Sometimes you just have to like mash it a bunch of times until the grease the hardened grease moves over and allows you to shift, and sometimes it will just do this. And sometimes it takes the bigger part with it as well because it's so clumped up in there. So I'll get these off, get the grips off. As I mentioned, this can be pretty laborious, and I have quite a long video on how to do it, but we will get them nice and lubed up and get that old peanut butter junk out of there. And they'll probably bring around $150 on eBay, so that will more than pay for the carbon fiber fork. That was only $100, so that is a huge bonus. Now, we're going to move along though. For the wheel set, we have a Mavic CXP10. This is a great mid-range wheel set. They have very nice Shimano RSX hubs, good quality stuff. You don't see that very often. And to top it off, they have DT Swiss stainless steel spokes on here. So good quality stuff all around. And that's really why you see this bike's only at 23 pounds already, right off the bat. And I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to lose almost 2 pounds by dropping that head shock. They're quite heavy. That is without a doubt a fact. So we'll get around to having some fun on this. One of the things you always want to do, we have RSX brakes on here. These are not much lighter or not much heavier than, I think it's about 75 grams, 50 grams, somewhere around there, than some of my favorite budget brakes, 6500 Ultegras. So these are actually very good where they're at. Not going to mess with them at all. We will, however, be taking out these terrible monoblock one-piece brake pads and putting in some shoes with some actual slip-in brake pads, and these are much higher quality. I'm going to leave the rear derailleur on. I don't mind the RSX long cage. It's actually pretty nice. I am going to, don't want to spoiler alert this, but I think we're going to get rid of this cassette and maybe do a little work on the wheel. And I think that's probably about it. We have a really nice RX100 front derailleur and an RSX triple crank. Really both very nice units, won't mess with them at all. It's actually kind of hard to find these RX100 things. They're a tiny step above RSX, so we're working with something a little bit better than Tiagra, a little bit less better than 105. So honestly, perfect stuff to get a really good jump start on an excellent road build. Now it's time to take it all apart and get into it. pretty sick looking build here, just on a dirt cheap budget. And now we have dropped, as I predicted, almost 2 pounds by getting rid of the head shock. It's kind of cool to have if you want to do gravel riding in theory, but when you really get into it, the clearance on this is pretty terrible. It doesn't fit a 28C tire well at all, especially if you're going to be in muddy areas. High chance you just rub right through the blades of the fork by having mud caked up on your sidewalls. It happens all the time. So what we ended up doing, we ended up converting this over. That's a whole separate video on how to do this, but I will show you how to do that in the next video. It's all filmed and all. This came out to being 1,270 grams. That came out to being 525 grams. Those are super plentiful. Fits a 28C tire, no problem whatsoever. And you get a much higher road quality ride because now you have carbon absorbing all of this. We dropped 1 pound, 1 2/3 pounds. That's what I'm coming out to, just under 2 pounds. A great bonus. I didn't end up weighing the headset and the bearings and all of that, but you could see here, these quite a large steer. It's kind of crazy. And putting in a 1 1/8 in that is, they call it like a Fun or something on Amazon. It's some weird brand. Just some generic stuff from China. But it is very high quality. You have to buy the top set and the lower set. It has a very nice race on there. And it looks great. It completes the smooth black look on the paint. So I'm pleased with all of it. I left fork cut a little long. I only trimmed off just a little bit for whoever ends up buying this. You always want to leave it a little bit taller if you're in this situation and then cut it down once you like your fit. So you lose a little bit of weight of that, but you can see there's a stack of steers. I don't often do that, but for a brand new fork, you don't ever want to cut it super low. Of course, I mentioned we were going to get rid of the RSX, and that is another thing on my to-do list. We'll end up doing that at some point in the future. Try to get my costs back and add in some really nice micro news. These are 8-speed by 3-speed. I wanted to keep the heart of the build, the RSX group set is really it's like totally what my channel's about, just the best you can get on a budget, and it performs super well. I love that they put an RX 100 front derailleur on here. It's literally the same thing as Shimano 105 at the time, but the finishes are slightly different. I think this one looks better because it's polished. That's just me. The great thing though, even though on an 8x3, when you go 8-speed in the rear, this is only 7, so we've upgraded. There's often you'll get cross-train rubbing on the cheaper front derailleurs. The really nice thing though about the front derailleur is no cross-train issues whatsoever. It actually, even where we're at right now, it won't even cross-train, being big to big. Pretty cool to see. I mentioned we went 8-speed here. This is a dirt cheap upgrade for your bike too, only $30. I have a whole video on how to do this process. These 7-speed bikes always come with cassette free hubs that are only 7-speed. A lot of them, it's just technology back then. It was pretty new for cassettes at the time. So you can easily, though, in today's time, get a Dior free hub, swap that on. They're $30. It's pretty smooth in and out job. You got a lot of little bits you don't want to lose. I ended up taking 2 washers out of the RSX one. Unfortunately, if you have like a 105 or a higher quality Ultegra, Shimano 600 at the time, that's they have a little bit more ability to swap parts in and out, so you could get different thicknesses and you don't have to worry about dishing it. But since this is your only option is to take out the only 2 washers that are in there, you're left with having to dish it. That's not really a big deal, but it does tack on a little bit more to an already big build. But I'm glad I did it because, like I said, having the 8x3 speed gives you a lot more availability to put a bigger cassette on there. It's super hard finding 7-speed cassettes. And actually, you could always pull that off and sell it. They're always sell for as long as it's pretty close to being new, clean you up real nice. You get $30-$40 for them on eBay. It only costs $8 to ship it out. So it adds up, of course. But if you wanted to put 11 by 30 tooth on here and go, as I did on my Cannondale Cad3, that's a great 8-speed cassette. You could do that no problem. And another big benefit of having 8-speed stuff is it is so cheap. Oh my God, it's so cheap. Chains are dirt cheap. Cassettes are dirt cheap. Chain rings. My Cad4 I just put some brand new 9-speed chain rings. That alone was $75 in chain rings. It freaking expensive for 2 of them. So these are you could find $10, $12, $15 a piece. And the smaller ones are even cheaper. You probably find them for 10 or under. So it's very cool to have that. one of my favorite things about the 8-speed stuff is how also it's going to last longer. The thinner chains and cassettes, they're going to wear faster. That's just, a lot of people, everybody wants 10, 11 and all that speed, but yeah, it's not going to be last as nearly as long and be nearly as durable. For our cockpit, I just left the Cannondale Cad 7000 series. I believe that must be 6061 or something aluminum. It's pretty lightweight, no point in taking them off. We went ahead and put on a similar stem to what was on there, around 170 grams, off my Volano bike actually. So if you wanted to, you could go a little bit lighter with the Origin, with the Uno 7 actually. Thinking about those chain rings, they were Origin 8, but no really need to. This is good enough. You're only talking like 50 grams or something different. The big thing that you could do, but I am a little tapped out on my funds on this bike, is change it out for a carbon seat post. These are around 200 grams. This is over 300 grams. So if you did do the stem and the seat post, you're at 150 grams. That does actually add up. Moving on though, that pretty much completes the build. I do have a bit of a heavy seat on here, but it's, as I mentioned, everything's on a budget, right? We did put 28Cs on here and they fit no problem whatsoever. That is a huge bonus to the ride quality on top of the fork. But there is, a little bit of a weight penalty gain. So despite the fact we lost all that weight with the fork, we didn't actually clear 2 pounds quite yet. We're at 21 pounds and change now. So I'm super pleased with that though. And if you wanted to, as I mentioned, the wheels, the seat posts, there's still a lot more left in. But I'm very pleased with where we're at. It looks awesome. I know it will ride awesome too. The Cad3 is a legendary frame. It's pretty cool to have now a Cad2, a Cad3, a Cad4, and a Cad1 that I did way back last year. So it's been a fun little ride through Cannondale's history. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. It really helps my small channel grow. If you want to support the channel, you can find us on Patreon, and I thank you if you do. You could also do this through YouTube memberships. And that's it, guys. Have a good day. Bye.